Hey, this is Dewey, and welcome to Old Man Yellin'. So, a couple of days ago, scrolling through the internet, a question popped into my head. In business, while keeping costs is important, but protecting your data ranks higher on the list. With AI, why is it that some of the largest companies in the world are willing to feed their precious data into these large language models that they technically cannot control? So, I went on a haphazard, coffee fueled, sleep deprived journey, and these are the opinions, not facts, opinions that I came up with from the data I came across. Before we start, let's talk about something I consider an important acknowledgement for formulating opinions. So let's talk confirmation bias. In general, we humans have a tendency to not seek information that might disprove what we believe. Even when presented with facts contradicting said beliefs, people generally tend to disregard facts and stick to their original belief. It is difficult to identify bias within oneself because all of us have some presumptions about how the world works. Since we seek out information that solidifies that view over time, any contradicting information can be explained away. I too have my own bias. If you've listened to my earlier episodes, you know I am immensely against the unregulated expansion of AI. So, I want to assure you that I have tried my best to not let bias dictate my opinion. And I hope that you, dear listener, will also not let bias be the driving force and think about the information and form your own opinion. Now, let's get back to the topic at hand. I will be using the data from the United States, which feels apt as the largest AI companies are here. But since AI is a global phenomenon right now, you can probably look up the data from your own countries and see how they compare. There seems to be a few factors driving AI growth within businesses: cost, unemployment, labor, and the overall global economic uncertainty. To get a view of the full picture, I decided to start from the thing that makes us employable: education, specifically college enrollment. The way I see it, college education is a commitment. A young adult is committing 4 years of their lives and a lot of money so an institution can provide them with the skills and knowledge they need to secure their future. A lot of thought goes into this process. So I believe enrollment numbers can help us infer an overall trend. The data is from the National Student Clearinghouse, looking at the final spring enrollment trends for 2026. The total post secondary enrollment was 18.6 million students, which is up a whopping 1% from last year. As I wanted to see the effects of AI, some majors would be influenced more than others. So, going through the data by enrollment in majors, here are some key highlights. Health, engineering, and administration saw the largest increase from the previous year within the 4 year undergraduate program. Now, on the opposite end, liberal arts, English literature, and leading the pack, computer and information sciences had the largest decrease in enrollment. So, programs that would be the most affected by AI saw the largest decrease, and those with the least impact of AI saw an increase in enrollment. Isn't that interesting? Computer and information science was truly the outlier in the data. Looking at the last 5 years, within the 4 year program, it had tremendous growth up till 2024. I mean, of course, right? Computer science was a safe bet. You could get a stable, well paying job in some of the largest companies in the world. But in 2025, enrollment saw stagnation and 2026 had an 8.4% drop in enrollment. That's a difference of more than 50,000 students. The 2 year program within computer science saw a similar trend with an 11.2% change from the previous year. Can't even imagine how all the junior and senior year students enrolled within the program must be feeling. All this uncertainty surrounding their major that they have made a commitment to. Since we are talking about education, let me go off on a tangent. See, I believe that college education is an important part for the overall development of a young individual. Being exposed to different topics, people, ideologies, environments, it helps shape a person for the real world. I would say it is the best way to ease into how the world works. Managing your time, your expenses, dealing with people you don't like, finding your interests, understanding your priorities, and all of that happens in an environment where there are mostly competent adults to support and guide you. I think it's just too expensive, but that's for another time. But going back to college being a commitment, once the decision is made, it is something you are logged into. Changing majors is possible, but it is not easy, especially when you consider the cost associated with it. So, at the end of that commitment, that degree should make you employable. But what do you do when that degree becomes worthless because of some new tech? There is an uncertainty within the youngins about what path to choose, and will it still be viable in the future? This definitely wasn't the case when I got my degree a long time ago. I believe educational institutions and the government have a responsibility towards the young ones. That the commitment that these students are making is a viable path forward. These young adults are literally the future. We should be doing everything possible to help them. Alright, rant over. Back to the main story. There's definitely an odd trend in enrollment. Now, let's look at the next part of the puzzle, the job market. The most recent data for 2026 shows a total unemployment rate of 4.2%, with recent college graduates having an unemployment rate of 5.6%, and young workers aged 20 to 27 overall have an unemployment rate of 7.2%. I don't know about you, but whenever numbers and percentages are shown in the news and articles, I feel disconnected. Apart from low is good and high is bad, it is difficult to infer much more from it. So let's simplify this. While researching this, a thing that truly surprised me was that the unemployment rate only counts someone as unemployed if they have actively looked for work in the past 4 weeks. If not, they are not counted. Overall, this makes sense because it excludes people who don't want a job, like students or stay at home parents, but it also excludes young adults who have actively stopped looking for a job. The disconnected youth, or young adults aged 18 to 24, that are not engaging in school, training, or work, make up for about 1 in 7 young adults as per the RAND organization. So, this group doesn't get counted towards unemployment. And as to why there seems to be a growing trend of disassociated young adults, I would rather not speculate and leave that to the experts. On an entirely unrelated note, the minimum wage in Florida is about $14. Average grocery price for the week comes out like 140, and average rent is about 500 in a week. So a person working 40 hours in a week makes about $540, and groceries and rent cost about 640. Just something I wanted to add for no particular reason. Anyway, to sum up, unemployment rate is high among recent college graduates and young workers in general, and there is a portion of young adults who seem to have stopped actively looking for jobs. Going through this, my first instinct was, of course, it's AI. Companies are using AI to do data entry level jobs, and the youth are suffering. But before we bring out the pitchforks, let's look at the other side of the coin, the employers. Researching the job market led me to a term, low hire, low fire economy. That implies employers overall are not cutting jobs and are not adding many jobs either. This leads to a tough job market where, because of uncertainty, people are reluctant to look for new positions, and those looking for jobs take longer to find one if they find one. While AI definitely played a part in this, it is the overall global uncertainty between wars, tariffs, and economic instability that added on to it. Now that we have explored enrollment, employment, and unemployment, let's look at the final piece of the puzzle, AI. From a business point of view, at the end of the day, new employees are an investment. They require time, training, and money, but if you are uncertain about the future, you will want to cut costs. If you're cutting new employees, that work still needs to get done. Old way used to be outsourcing, but now I guess we have AI. Generative AI, the tech that was at the right place and the right time. Think about it. If you are uncertain about economic stability, you get a subscription service that does the work for you, and when things get better, you're ready to expand again. You just cancel the subscription and hire your own staff. My opinion is that AI workload is just a placeholder. To reinforce this, let's look at some recent events that underline that this tech is not as economically viable as these companies claim it to be. Microsoft recently revoked developers' access to Claude, which they say is due to restructuring, but speculation is that it's because of the cost. Google saying that they blew through their entire 2026 AI budget in a couple of months. Even OpenAI CEO said that token cost is starting to become a problem. Now, these are companies that have their own large language models, and they cannot seem to justify costs. On the customer side, Uber most recently said how management is not seeing a clear link between spending on AI services and profits. Well, they said AI services and successful product ship, but same thing. And while I don't know the numbers, I can certainly say that, all those layoffs these companies had over AI, the cost they saved, taking away the livelihood of people, is nothing compared to the cost that they are paying right now in AI. And whether there has been any tangible benefit, who's to say? So, to sum up, the largest companies in the world are unable to justify AI cost. With billion-dollar data centers being built wherever they can and exorbitant costs for maintaining said data centers, I do not believe the cost will go down. And I'm not even getting into the impact data centers have on their surroundings, with people getting higher electricity bills to excessive water usage, leaving less for the people around, and to add, the excessive noise pollution caused by them. Data centers are becoming a community nuisance. This doesn't even include all the lawsuits alleging harm caused to real people by AI chatbots, which will further add to the cost. Now, apart from the cost, let's talk about data security. With the ever evolving nature of AI, the risk of breach increases as well. I'm no expert, so here's what I found researching through the internet. Since these models work through prompts, they are quite susceptible to something known as prompt injection, where malicious instructions can be added into data sources or data is leaked through queries. On a side note, I just found the premise of leaking data through queries hilarious. Like billions upon billions of dollars of worth system, and the hackers are getting access to info like a guy wearing down some poor girl at the bar into giving her number. Right, where was I? Going back to the vulnerabilities, since these systems use AI generated code, when the AI makes mistake and that mistake is part of a larger system, they get compounded. And apart from the stability risk, it can become an entry point for malicious parties. Apart from that, these systems usually rely on independent systems to work in cohesion to operate. So, risk in one can compromise the entire system. There have always been issues with insider threat in business, but AI is especially susceptible because it trusts internal data, which increases the magnitude of damage that can be caused. Apart from compromising data, AI workloads are computationally expensive. So, an attack focused on token consumption can run a company into bankruptcy. These were some of the risk factors I found. Don't forget, all this need for security further will increase the cost. While I understand that data security has always had issues, I believe that AI has exacerbated the problem. Going back to my original question, why are companies willing to rely on AI? So, the way I see it, there is a feedback loop going on. Companies are hiring less due to uncertainty and using AI to make up for the workload. This is creating a higher unemployment among the youth and particularly in certain fields, further feeding into the economic instability. And students are looking at these trends to decide their major, which further creates a gap of skilled workers within particular fields. While that gap could work in the favor of AI in the future, I believe that the cost to companies will be too high. And as things stabilize, companies start to do a cost benefit analysis over their own workers versus AI. I believe that AI will lose. There are too many points of failure within the AI system, and not to forget the exorbitant cost associated with it. I personally would love to go back to a time where all these damn chatbots did not exist, but I do understand that these large language models are a Pandora's box that has been opened. AI has created a severe cybersecurity problem that only AI can fix. Convenient, right? I understand that AI can be helpful, but right now the harm tremendously outweighs the good it can possibly do. Researching this, I kept on thinking about if I had the power, what would I do? If getting rid of AI is not possible, I believe this to be the bare minimum of things that these AI companies should follow. First, generative AI has no place in the arts. Art is a form of human expression. Let it stay so. Second, limiting chatbot interactions to practical things like research, coding help, organization, and so on. It should not, in any capacity, provide emotional, social, or medical support. Any companies insisting on that should be 100% liable to those it causes harm to. Third, clear and visible marking on AI generated content. This will help tackle misinformation and would even help with all the scams this tech is causing. Difficult to scam someone when the chatbot writes generated with AI after every reply. This is just what I feel like is the bare minimum. I'm sure someone who is an expert on this matter can make a more comprehensive list. I definitely understand that if such measures are implemented, AI usage will fall. but at the same time, it will leave space for actual useful AI tasks in productivity and whatnot, turning AI into an asset and not a burden on human existence. So, will the AI bubble pop? I honestly don't know. But what I do understand is pumping tremendous amount of limited precious resources into this in hopes that things will work out is not sustainable. I hope that you enjoyed this episode and it gave you something to think about. And if not, well, what do I know? I'm just an old man yelling. This is Dewey, signing off.